Hello, and welcome to the Empowered ECE Live. As usual, I am so excited to be here to talk about yet another topic, very important topic in our field. As you know, the biggest goal of this show is to bring awareness to many different topics that will help us feel more empowered in our role as early childhood professionals, leaders, and all of that great stuff. So I am so excited to connect with Marcel of My Feel Links to talk about social and emotional development in children. So we're going to get started. I see her in the audience here. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing really fantastic. I'm actually on a little bit of a vacation.
Oh, are you really? Oh, lucky you. I'm sort of jealous, but that's okay.
I've been jealous seeing all the other people, but I got a little getaway just with my mother.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes, it has been a relaxing, rejuvenating couple of days. But I'm excited to be able to get on with you today. And
yeah, I'm so thankful. Sorry, go ahead.
I said, how are you doing?
I'm good. I wish I was on vacation, but it's all good. I am good. I'm excited that you were able to schedule some time to still talk. I appreciate that so much.
Yes, for sure.
Amazing. So let's get started. So first, let's start with hearing a little bit about you and what My Feel Links is.
Great. So I'll just start out by telling you that I have been working with children for over 2 decades now. Between, my teaching career, I was a kindergarten teacher as well as a preschool teacher and a preschool director. I have gone on to take all of my great love for social emotional learning and that big passion that I had from the very beginning with children and teaching our youngest kids. I have 2 of my children of my own, so also trying to, use all those tricks and tools with my own children. I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. And I launched Feelings just this last year. It's just been over a year. And Feelings is, the company of itself is just me, and it is all about social emotional learning. I've created some hands-on tools I can share and show. I write a blog. Everything's really about emotional awareness, the mental health state of our children, what we can do from a very young age to start teaching children these really important life skills. I have free resources and other things there as well. But it really started out with my, passion and creating these hands-on tools. And that feeling started, and it sort of rolled into all of these other really wonderful experiences and meeting wonderful people in the same, space. And so that's where I am today.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And of course, I've got my little links here, Feel Links here with me. But yeah, let's get into that because I love the fact that you're bringing awareness to social, emotional development, awareness, all of that stuff that really, I know we had a conversation about what builds really great leaders in the future. So it's not just about giving them those skills now, which is super important, but also talking about how we make amazing leaders in the future. So tell me a little bit about how to use My Feel Links and how you encourage educators to use it in their classrooms.
Wonderful. So Feeling Set has these emotion dolls. So I'll show the dolls. So each doll is 2-sided, and each of the dolls have a face, a color, a feeling. They're very squishy, and they are based upon what I call the Feelings 8 core feelings. So there are 4 dolls with feelings. So we have sad and happy, is angry and scared, and this one is embarrassed and proud. Calm. I love this one.
That's my favorite. I have calm too.
Don't we love calm? Yes. So what these dolls really represent is a great hands-on tool for children to be able to not only explore their own selves and kind of how they're feeling, but also to be able to communicate that to an adult. So each of these also have these touch points on the head, the heart, and the belly. And what those touch points represent is getting children to really understand, wow, that feeling in my belly, that is, nervousness, or that feeling in my heart, that's. And so when we're feeling anger coming on, and maybe our tummy is feeling a certain way, or our heart starts racing, we're aware and helping those children at a young age become aware, like, that's anger coming on, right? And so that's really where those touch points come in, is really that we are feeling feelings throughout our body. And so these dolls, again, not only are for a child to explore, wow, let me check these out. Okay, this is how I'm feeling right now, and be able to communicate that. And maybe it looks like how they're feeling and they don't even know the vocabulary. So the other really important piece to all of this is that we are building what's called emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is the ability to not only understand our own feelings, but to be able to understand someone else's, which builds super important skills, as you were saying, through life. So we are building these as young children, up and up and up, until we're off in the work world, or we're off in our world of adulthood, being able to navigate our feelings, being able to navigate, be empathetic for others. So these are the skills that we're building from a young age. And a lot of us will talk about, our generation, and even our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation, that this wasn't, the center of what we knew then was important. But all the research now is really talking about how emotional intelligence, the ability to understand our own feelings and understand others' feelings, is really the key to kind of who we are in this world, where we fit, how we communicate, how we build relationships, our peers, our friends, our families, in the workplace later on. And the other piece to feelings is this journal. That I created this journal was because when I was teaching both kindergarten and preschool, we did journals every month. And what a 3-year-old draws in a journal, and then what the middle of the year kindergartner writes and draws in a journal, I mean, vast, amazing, telling stories about feeling, maybe what they did the day before, whatever that looks like. And we know that journaling is so important for our mental health. And the reason is because we're getting things out, we're able to problem solve, we're able to look at others, perspectives of things, being able to take things into consideration that we might not notice when our emotions are high. But when we can come back to it, I mean, I have my own journal. So even as an adult, like, I'm on vacation, I took it with me. I mean, those are important skills that we're building. And so this journal not only has wonderful information in the beginning for a parent or a caretaker or an educator to be able to know, why is this important? And what am I doing? What are the goals of feelings? And why is this important for the child that I am working with? So there's a few pages that really help you and guide you. But then it goes into just all of these great, pages that really help our kids. So on the angry page, for instance, so we're learning more vocabulary, because what we know, and if we've been listening out there in the world these days about emotional vocabulary, the more specific we can get. So instead of being mad or angry, is it stressed? Is it upset? Are we, getting more granular is so important. So I have each of those core feelings, have those words to grow up. Then we move into those daily prompts. And it really is a space. It's a drawing space, a writing space, a space to be able to share how you're feeling. And what a great communication tool, especially to our educators when we're dealing with, underlying behaviors of our children in our classrooms, find more. How do we figure out kind of what's below the surface? And some simple drawing really can tell us as teachers what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. As soon as I saw you on social media, and so I love like little things like this as well. But then just hearing you talk about it is just so amazing, because I hope you know that you're changing the world with this, by the way, because having
really appreciate that, because that's I mean, we hope what we're doing is affecting the people, right?
Yeah, it's a huge aspect, such a huge aspect. And I'm all about social and emotional development for myself, you know, as a person, and then also teaching in the classroom. But finally, to have a resource to use in the classroom to expand on that is huge, for sure. I didn't get to record it, but I did eventually show them to my nephew. So my nephew he'll be 3 in October. So I actually showed them to him, and he was so excited. I think this one is his favorite because he's always happy, right? So, and
Right.
it's just so crazy to see, because I haven't given him the journal, because
Right.
I'm like, you're not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
But these little thingies, and just seeing how he's touching it, taking a look at it, starting to say things like happy. I told him that this is calm, but he's very convinced that this is sad because it's blue, right? But just having that open conversation with
Mhm.
them about feelings at any age is just so amazing. And it's so amazing to have this as a practical tool for
Right.
children.
Well, and I think that's, you know, I love technology and I love that we can talk to each other across the, you know, whole planet now. But, you know, I love that what we also know is that play is such an important language for our children. And whether they're non-speakers or verbal children or shy children, right? So we've got something to say, like, you know, why don't you go pick up the doll that's showing me how you're feeling right now? And for a child to be able to visually see it and touch it and go take it over to the teacher or the parent or even the, you know, I've got healthcare workers with these in their offices, at the pediatrician's office or at the office. You know, I've got school counselors using these, and they're telling me that it's really opening up that communication. And it might be with a child who was more reserved, more quiet, more not so open. And
Mm-hmm.
even as a preschool teacher and a kindergarten teacher, I heard that a lot from parents.
Yes.
Suggestion always was go get a journal, because oftentimes, you know, that simple, you know, drawing a picture and like getting used to that kind of routine. And if that's, you know, on a Sunday evening, or if it's every single night before bed, or if it's every morning, whatever that routine can be for your child,
Mm-hmm.
right, for your family or for your school environment, it has opened up not only the communication, but it's also helped them focus so much more on these important skills at home. And I think that for me is the greatest accomplishment at this point, is that education that we're trying to spread is like, oh, we're actually doing this at home now. And I'm spending more time on, you know, maybe not problem solving for my child every time there's an issue, but kind of letting them problem solve, or being able to, like I said, communicate how they're feeling and letting them know that that's okay. We all feel anger or we feel nervous, and we need our kids to know that that is okay
Hey, yeah.
with that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
can we move on, and can we take those setbacks and navigate what then is next, you know? And so those are the skills I feel like in our classrooms and in our homes that we need to be doing with our kids, because one day we're not going to be there to pick it all up, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we teach them to be able to say, like, you know, maybe it's overexcitement. You know, sometimes our kids get, especially at school, right? It's like something new is happening and they're just like,
Right.
chaos can break out. But, you know, so then what do we do with that overexcited feeling? And then how do we take ourselves down to a place where we can then, you know, do the next thing and move forward as a class, or, you know, in our homes. So just really important to me to have these tangible, touchable pieces for children.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, amazing. So as you know, you're from, you know, the education world. I have a lot of viewers that are from the specific early childhood world. So they're in the infant rooms, the toddler rooms, and the preschool rooms, and sometimes school age as well. So I'd love to kind of go through each age range and to get some tips on how that specific teacher can use your tool in the classroom. So starting with the infant rooms, with the babies, the sensory age, what do you suggest for that?
So the really great news is these are toy tested for 0 and up. So these are my little samples. So they don't have a tag. The ones you have do have a tag. So all of they're compliable to all of the, you know, 0 and up. So, these just talking, I mean, we know that talking to our babies is so important, right? So when I had my kids at home and I was home doing things, it's like, okay, mom's feeling, happy, we're playing or whatever, using our words, using our language and talking to them. But even, showing them, the happy doll and talking about happiness when maybe the child is, doing something or laying in, the crib and feeling happy and kicking and, or feeling excited. And I think or I will say, I know there is no wrong time to start. So if you haven't started, it's okay. You can start now. But I would say if you're listening to this and you're in the infant room or you have a new baby, talk about feelings now, because as they're growing, like your 2-year-old nephew who's turning 3, that language is just going to open up like a whole world for them from the beginning. And, in the classroom or in the center you're in, of course, we're modeling, what those relationships look like with our coworkers. We're modeling what it looks like when we speak to that child's parent on drop off and pickup. So modeling that behavior is very important for us, no matter if we're in our workplace or we're in our homes, as well as parents, right? So modeling that in our homes. I'm not saying that, my husband and I are happy-go-lucky and get along all the time. Our children need to see that we can, get into a discussion. We can maybe feel angry at each other, but we can hear that and we can move on.
Yes.
And I feel like all of that modeling is the most important thing that we can do.
Yes.
Even those little babies are there. And then the other piece I want to quick talk about is what's called co-regulation. So when we are at our centers or, teaching or parents, when a child is, let's say, crying, and we are the one that has to, at that point in their life, help soothe them. And so teaching them that and teaching that trust that someone's going to come when I am crying because I'm wet or I'm tired or I'm hungry or whatever that cue is from that child, that you are going in calmly and you are going in with a demeanor that is safe and trusting for that child. That is also, besides talking to them and using the language, all of that is so important to build the trust, because eventually what we want to see is that child later on to be able to regulate emotions, on their own when they're able to. And so the more that we can show that we are the soothing adult that comes in calmly and carefully and thoughtfully, because sometimes as a parent, I remember feeling that like very overwhelmed, like I can't crying, fed you, I've changed you, okay, I think you're just tired, but trying as much as we can to just keep calm, because that is what we are hoping to gain from them. As soon as we're all, overwhelmed and riled up, that baby feels that child feels that. And so the more that we can keep our calmness and that regulation to help them regulate their emotion, that's really important at that age.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I know any infant teachers that are watching for sure would really appreciate this information, because I find that a lot of professional education and experience about learning is mainly geared to toddler teachers, preschool teachers, kindergarten teachers, and up. And, our infant teachers that do such amazing work in those classrooms usually get overlooked. So I really appreciate, all of that information there. So let's move on to the toddler phase. So they're moving out of the infant, they're walking, seeking independence, all of that good stuff, starting that language. So what are some suggestions you have for that age range?
I would say at that age, it's really important, again, for that modeling. That's, we're still co-regulating. We're still helping them find that, we want them to experience the emotions they're feeling, but then we also want to bring things back to calm so that we can be learning and thoughtful about the situation. What we know about our brains is that they're not developed until we're in our late 20s, even early 30s. So when we're dealing with our babies and our toddlers and our elementary age and so on, and our teens and tweens, all of it, right? We're dealing with children who are not fully developed yet in their brains. And what happens is when those heightened emotions come, all the thinking, all the learning, like all that stuff kind of goes offline. And so it's really important to let them feel what they feel, but then helping them come to calm. So a few things that I would suggest in that are, one, during classroom time, calm times, you know, teaching kids different regulation skills, right? So what are some things that we can try? And maybe, you know, Friday is, you know, everyone's going to try breathing exercises. And so we're going to teach, you know, maybe 2 different ways that we could do our breathing. There's, you know, like the box breathing. So we, you know, breathe in, breathe out, breathe, you know, so box breathing. Or maybe it's, you know, simply putting our hands on our chest and our belly and really feeling our breath. So practicing some different skills that children could use when their emotions are in a place that they need to kind of come to calm before we can, like I said, teach them any of the problem solving or teach them the things that we want to teach them. They're not hearing us when their emotions are high. So it's really important that we come up with, I like to put them on the wall. So coming up, maybe we add one, you know, every week. There's a new one that we're going to try. And then children are able to kind of go over to that visual and be like, oh, okay, so maybe it's a drink of water. Maybe it's a snack. Maybe the child's hungry, right? So what are the things that maybe the kiddos can tell you ideas even at that age, you know, at like that 2, 3, maybe they're trying things at home, but practicing those together. And then also making sure, like I said, that we're modeling the behavior that we're looking for, and naming feelings for them, right? They may not understand that what they're feeling is nervousness or anxiety, but giving them more words will eventually help them when they're in their, you know, when they're 4 and 5, to be able to really say like, I'm feeling really nervous about this, you know, new swing at school because I've never seen it before, or whatever that may be. But being able to differentiate that is so important. And so I would say at this point, it's okay to say like, you know, gosh, I think that right now I can see that you're feeling really, really upset. You're feeling sad, or maybe a child is, maybe there's grief, maybe something's going on at home. So being able to use that vocabulary and help them by labeling for them is okay at that age, and a really good way to help them start learning new vocabulary.
Absolutely. That toddler phase, you pretty much nailed it completely. There's a lot of things happening with toddlers because they're transitioning, you know, from infant stage. Language is a factor. We hear all about the terrible twos, but really what's happening is it's just a massive growth of everything happening at once, exploration, you know, egocentric thinking and going into that mode and all of that good stuff. But I love how you mentioned just putting language to their feelings, because that's exactly what they need at that time frame, and just giving them the words and kind of inputting it in with their feelings. Because even I think about my nephew as well, like he'll watch TV and take a look at like the emotions of the characters and say, oh, this person is, oh, she's sad, or he happy, or he'll look at his mom and his mom won't be smiling and he'll be like, oh, mommy's sad. And just so much things are happening with toddlers, and just giving them that language will really empower them through their emotions, which is exactly what we're looking for.
Absolutely. So true. I love that though. But yes, they're watching us, right? So they're watching teachers, they're watching their parents, their caretakers. And like I said, I think it's really good and very normal for our kids to see us feeling feelings that aren't the positive, you know, feelings. Like the tough stuff is real in life, and it's okay for them to say, oh, like my mommy looks angry today.
Yeah.
Now, you know, but then what do I do with that? You know, so those are modeling, not that we have to model it all positive. That isn't the world.
It's the real stuff. Yes. That's important. Yeah. And you know what? My mom's totally going to watch this, but I definitely, and she's fine with me sharing it. I definitely grew up in a household when I was younger where I didn't really see my parents fight. And that also plays a big, because I love that you mentioned that it doesn't always have to be the positive stuff, because you're actually role modeling more when it's not the positive stuff. And I grew up in a house where I never really saw my parents argue very much. They would go somewhere else, they'd come back and be fine, which is totally cool, right? But at the same time, when I did get to an age where they became more comfortable getting upset, it became so foreign to me. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happening? Right? So it is okay to show those emotions and kind of navigate through them so that the child can kind of take a look and say, okay, this is what I do when I'm mad, when I'm sad. These are some strategies, and that's healthy as well. For sure. Not knocking my parents' parenting style, because I came out fine, but
But I'm going to say, I mean, there's so much of our own past, right, that has built to where we are today. And I think that's a really important key to who we are, right?
Yes.
And the learning, like the things that we feel like are great to repeat and the things that will change as we, you know, parent or aunt or teach or whatever it is, right? And I think those are great learnings. And like I said, I think so much research has changed too, right? So the things that we know now, we didn't know then. And that's what we're trying to say, hey, there's reason for this. There's real research and the stuff is important. And so let's get that education out there. And whatever, you know, if it's feelings or whatever the tools look like, this is really important for our children now so that we are making these adults that can go off and really navigate life in a way that, you know, the world has changed a lot. And, you know, for better and for bad. And, you know, there's a lot to that. And I think what we want our kids to know is that navigating this tough world right now for them and what they've been through and what they've seen and experienced, you know, they might feel like they're coming out the other end, and some kids don't right now. And so paying attention to all of this right now, especially, is just so key for our kids.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, and then lastly, I know that you touched on it a little bit, but I definitely have to talk about the preschoolers, the older children. They've moved from toddler on to preschool, and they're getting ready to head into, you know, big school, as they say, right? What are some strategies that you have specifically for those teachers in those classrooms?
Yeah, so like I said, I use journals with my students at that age in preschool. I taught the threes and the pre-K class. We would start our morning with, you know, they would draw a picture, or, you know, some kids by the end were trying to label or even put some letters down and whatever writing looks like at that age. Just a really pleasant way to begin. We also did, at the time before I created these, we had feeling babies, you know, and so we would pass around dolls, and the kids would talk about how they were feeling that day. And that was kind of how we ended our day. And it was a great way for the kids to, one, communicate to the group and learn how to speak to the group, but also to really be able to think about, like, how am I feeling right now? And so giving them the words and the tools to be able to talk about that was really neat. And that's kind of where the idea of then these came from, because they didn't really have like faces and colors and things. They were just dolls we used. But yeah, so I think making sure, again, that we are helping them, because they're not at an age yet where they're going to be, you know, regulating their emotions and figuring it out, right? So giving them the tools. I love, again, posting things. I love making lists together as a group. So coming up with, what do I do in a situation where I'm feeling different feelings? So maybe it's a feeling of, you know, anger. So what are we going to do in our classroom if we're feeling that way? You know, and again, I'm a big, you know, poster maker. So, you know, putting those around or having a place like a calm space for kids, I think is a really great thing to do in our classroom. And again, I've seen it and I think it's fabulous, but putting, you know, your feelings or some journals back there so that children can take the opportunity to, you know, talk about their feelings if they're ready to, or draw about them. Again, we're not putting a journal at a child when they're like totally flooded with emotion.
That's not what they want to see.
This is a reflection and sort of a thinking process afterwards, right? Or even at the end of the day. But, you know, giving these kinds of tools to kids to be able to communicate at that age, because they are ready to, most likely at that age, and really listening. I think it's really important that we take time to listen all the time to our children. But at that age, they're often telling us the real truth, right? Like you said, they're starting to really be those social beings, not as egocentric, you know, and exploring what the world is around them. And it still is a kind of a small world for them, but it's going to get bigger. And so the more that we can really listen and take time, and I know we have so much on our plates as educators, right? The expectations of, you know, what needs to get done and what you have planned for the day. But you know what? sometimes we have to let that go, and we have to realize that this teaching might be more important than the math lesson that we have planned for your 5-year-old, right? Because what we know is that this emotional wellness in our children really is that, you know, if we have that down, then the other learning can happen. So if we're not paying attention to that because we have math to do, then that child is not going to gain what it is that you're trying to teach at that time.
Not going anywhere.
You know, and like I said, play is such, to me, like the preschool I taught in was a play-based preschool. I mean, that was the love language of the children, and just using tools to play, to talk about feelings and be able to do that every day they're in the classroom is really, really, really vital. So I would highly suggest, you know, whatever the tools may be. And, you know, of course, I know these are working and they're fabulous. And they're also really, some kids really like just to squish them. Some kids,
I was going to say that.
that like that, you know, that feedback and that, you know, and sometimes that's regulation for them, is just being something. So yeah, so I would say create a corner, create a space that's a trusting space that a child could go to when they're having big feelings, and know that they don't have to look at you, and eye contact isn't the most important thing at that time. Maybe they want to look down and they want to talk, or maybe you're talking to them. Know that the more you build that trust with that child, the more open they will be, but that takes time. And that, you know, and when we have our littles, you know, in preschool, sometimes it takes more time, you know, with one child than it does with another. And that's the uses of our kiddos. And so reading our class, reading our kids, knowing what each of their needs are, is just really important. And I know that's a really big job, but I know that's something as educators that we all, we do well. It just takes time sometimes. With some kids are just harder to crack open. So
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so great. So another question I have is more so about parents. So every so often I get parents that drop in maybe some ECEs that are parents. How can parents use these resources at home?
So what I love about these is that, well, I've had kiddos like carry them in their backpack. They go, you know, you can take them out of town, you can take them to school, you can take them in the car, you know. So the thing is that if you're, you know, they're very easily portable. So that's always good for parents to be able to like take the tools on the road when you're off going somewhere. But what to me is the most important piece of this is that we are building skills of, you know, not only self-awareness, but awareness of other people. And as a parent myself, I find care and kindness, compassion, and empathy to be like just the most important things that I want my children to learn. And while my child might be doing great in school, I've got a middle schooler and I have a 6th grader and a 4th grader. To me, it's how are they treating others? How are others treating them? And what is, you know, what's happening in their social world that really means a lot to me to hear. Again, I love that when they do well in school, but to me, we are social beings. And as parents, I believe it is our job, just as much as our educators' job, to teach these skills at home. And one thing I noticed in the last couple of years with the pandemic is there was a lot of talk about, oh, schools aren't doing social emotional learning. But social emotional learning is really, you know, those class meetings in the beginning of the day, and, you know, like the check-ins and just the fun.
Everywhere. Yeah.
They are doing it. But please remember, as parents, it is our job as well. And so taking tools like feelings and being able to talk to your child, open up those communication doors, because we all know as our children get older, we would really like those communication doors to be open. And so being a calm and soothing adult for your child in your home, especially when things are getting tough for them for whatever reason it is, be a space of a listener, be a space of, don't always come in to fix, be someone who can listen, take in, And if the child is needing that feedback or needing something else, it's important to listen to that and help them. But remember that we're trying to build skills so that they're able to do these things on their own eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe your child doesn't quite have the language yet to be able to talk about feeling anxious about a test, or doesn't know how to, express their shyness when it comes to, speaking in front of the class. And maybe that's why they're stressing out about school, So listening to what they're telling us at that elementary, middle school, high school, like we've got to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And these sorts of tools, I believe, are a way to help us as parents to recognize, like, oh, like I said, maybe Sunday night as everybody pulls their journals out and we're going to start our week off on this foot of like, how am I feeling right now? Maybe you've got children that like making goals. Maybe there's things that you then talk about. I've got on my site a great resource called Smart Goals, building goals with your child. Maybe they have goals for the week that they want to talk about as a family. So maybe you come up with some really neat routine that your family does together. But using these tools, again, I think they're a great resource for our kids to really be able to communicate and also just know themselves, like how they're feeling and what's bubbling up, and be able to express that to an adult in the house is important for our kids, especially right now. Our kids have a lot of compounded stress or anxiety about just the changes that have been happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to listen to them and help them through that with language is really important. I was going to say, in the journal here, it talks about, it has like a drawing space and you can circle kind of how you're feeling. But then on the other side for, children that are ready for, writing, their space, but also it's a great spot for dictation. So if you have a child who's apprehensive or doesn't want to write, or no matter what age they are, they might want to tell you. And what a great way to open up that communication. The other thing I've seen is kids writing and giving it to their parent and letting the parent read it, which is another special.
So cute. Yeah.
And even if you decide that your rules are that the parent could write in it, you could always, write notes back too. And, this is such a keepsake. It's hardback. It's, there's 60 full page spreads of that daily journal, along with, like I said, there's some really like fun pages about feelings and emotions, or like the weather. And, so there's all these different fun pages for the kids to do. There's pages about how I like to regulate. Go with your child, like talk about, what are your favorite ways when you're feeling tough emotions, and they can always go back and add to it. And, so it's sort of a tool that keeps on giving. And I just, like I said, it's portable too. So we always love being able to, like, I took it right here in my suitcase. So.
I love that. I love that. And just like you showed before, I love that the pages are so bright. You have the other terms for that specific feeling. It's just a book of knowledge, really, about feelings from the inside out. I'm not a parent yet, but I plan on being one soon, and I'm absolutely keeping this. Like, my nephew can use it, don't get me wrong, but it's going away until mine but it's so amazing. And like I said, as an educator in the field, I've always had such a strong feeling towards social and emotional development, because there's so many benefits to it. So to finally see a resource like this, where it really touches on every age range, straight from infant straight to school age when they get older. And like I said, the goal with social and emotional development is, yes, to give them the tools, the words, the language to help identify how they feel. But like I said, these children are going to be leaders. They're going to be our politicians. They're going to be our teachers. They're going to be our doctors. They're going to be amazing things. And the more we have these individuals that have emotional intelligence and awareness and stuff like that, we're just shaping better leaders for our tomorrow, right? So that is incredible.
I add to that, like I love the most recent sort of books and things that are coming out for adults. Really, I don't know, like Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, and I've read Susan David's Emotional Agility. It really tells us why, you know, in a bigger sense for ourselves as adults, but it also talks about, you know, Susan David talks so much about how this reflects upon the children in our lives and how we can sort of teeter-totter that into a different way than we were brought up, and how, you know, this is really the center of you know, the knowledge that if our children are able to have this and carry this forward, I truly deep down believe that we can build a much more compassionate and empathetic, caring world. And the more that we can understand how we're feeling and how other people are feeling, and what can I do for someone when they're feeling something tough? What does compassion look like? You know, what does empathy look like? That to me is like the ultimate goal. Yeah. And, you know, our little people, all of this, the great news is, can be started at any time. If we feel like we've missed something, you haven't. And also, you know, it is learned. This isn't just, you know, in them. You've got to teach it. And we as parents and educators need to remember that it happens, and out in our community. I mean, it's everyone. So
beautiful. Beautiful. Yes. Okay. So we're getting to the end of our talk. Of course, we can sit here all day and talk about social.
I know.
We're both very passionate about it.
Throw in though that I love your book. So I read it to my 10-year-old, and he was like, I have to bring that to school because they, you know, but your Zoe has allergy. I'm just like, it is so sweet. And her character is just, oh my gosh, she's so special, and I love it. And I hope, I don't know anything about this, but I hope there's more Zoe coming because she's darling. Yeah.
Thank you.
And because in fact, I did bring her.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But I love it. So I just had to throw that in because as someone who's been a teacher with allergies in the classroom, I'm like, what an amazing book to have had to like really tell the kids. So
yes.
I just
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Definitely the little allergy child in me was like, we need more resources. And I know you can relate, you know, being an entrepreneur and seeing the needs of the classroom and then being able to create that resource to that need. It's such an amazing feeling for sure. I know you can relate.
Yes, but it's so good. Like I just had someone say to me, you guys can bring peanut butter to school. I'm like, well, yeah, they can bring it, but yeah, there's other tables some kids go sit at, but yeah, you know, so it's like, oh, you know, everywhere's handling it differently, but it's so out there in our kids' world, and it's a really great resource. So
yeah. And one thing I'll say about the book and in connection with social emotional development, when I was working with the illustrator to illustrate Zoe, aside from how she looks, was also the expressions in the book as well. So you'll see she's feeling confident, she's feeling happy, she's scared, she's nervous. I was very adamant because, again, all back to social emotional development. And I was reading the book with my nephew because he makes me read it like at least 20 times a week.
Cool. My aunt's an author.
Oh gosh. And he'll go through and like say Zoe's happy, Zoe's sad, and just being able to identify those kind of things is just an amazing thing.
So it's fabulous. Yes. And well, my 10-year-old like went nuts for it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Okay, so the last thing is I am so thankful for our collaboration and our partnership. I know we've got a lot of things that we want to work on together in general, but one of the things is actually we have a combined promo code so that anybody watching, anybody following our network here can actually grab the Feel Links package, which is the book, the beautiful little faces and stuff like that as well. I, on my side, will put the link to the code on my page. So once you go to the link on my page, so I'll have that for everybody watching for sure. But I'm not sure if you wanted to also add a little bit more about where they can touch base with you, where they can buy, and all of that stuff.
Okay, so Feel Links has two L's. So really my mother actually came up with the name and I just love it. But it's like a link to our feelings. So it's Feel, Feel, and then another L for links. So on social media, I'm at My Feel Links. And on the web, I'm myfeellinks.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm on Twitter, but I don't really know much about. To be totally honest with you, but on my website, you can sign up. I do send a weekly newsletter. This is the first and only week I'm taking off of that because I'm taking a little self-time. But I send a weekly newsletter, and I share resources out in the world. Like I've shared your book actually, and I write a blog every week. So I link to the blog. So that also is on my site, and I have free resources that you can go on and print off. There's also a little page there on the dolls. So if you have a kiddo that wants to see them, but they kind of dance and they tell a little about each doll, introducing them. And you can, of course, I love, I'm a participant in summits and sort of these sorts of discussions all about emotions and children and well-being. So I enjoy doing that as well and presenting some educational type material and speaking to schools and speaking out there to, the parent world. And then you can purchase sets of feelings. And if you're purchasing for schools, always email me because I love giving our special educators a little discount. So
amazing, yeah. Amazing. So it's at Feel Links. I see somebody in the chat asking for it to be repeated. At Feel Links. Go ahead.
My Feelings. So MyFeellinks. My Feelings.
Perfect. Yeah. And then there's a link on your page to get to everything else as well, right?
Yes, there is.
Beautiful. Yeah. And definitely get on her emailing list and look at those blogs, because I think teachers who focus on social emotional development are just powerful educators. I think everything we do is powerful, of course, but powerful educators will also teach about emotional intelligence, teach about awareness, teach about all of the aspects when it comes to social and emotional development. So definitely take advantage of the free resources that she offers, because it is brilliant and amazing. And I'm so excited for our connection. And then also, as I mentioned, I have a promo code that I will be putting in the link sometime today. I should have put it beforehand, but it's all good. I will put it sometime today, right after this talk, so you can get to it. And I was in terms of centers, definitely see if you can grab, a package for your center and try it out, and have the teachers try it out in the classrooms and take advantage of the promo link to be able to grab that. But yes, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Love chatting with you, and thank you that we've connected. So.
Yes, absolutely. We will be in touch again. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.